I apologize for the John Mayer photobomb here, but just noticed something very strange on a Marantz amplifier that I've been looking at for troubleshooting. As some of you all may or may not know, the Marantz bug has bit me, and I'm not only using one as my daily driver. This is a 2330B. I'm also servicing them, but I wanted to take on a few Marantz receivers. Now, when I first tried it, none of these indicator lamps on the top here, the phono, FM, and AM, nothing would work. And I was looking all over. I was testing the main filter caps to make sure we had all our voltage. I had not hooked this up to speakers yet, not once yet. He said the amplifier works, but the tuner's dead. So I'm jumbling all over the place here, but what I basically found was there's 4 transistors on this heatsink. And also notice this is the power and amplifier board. So I was looking, and I saw this lonely little transistor sitting up here. I noticed this sounds like a power supply problem, because these lights wouldn't work, and there was no action from the AM or FM tuner. Even if you press any of these buttons, nothing would come. I cleaned all the controls, it was dead. No action from the meters. But now you can see if I put it on FM, I'm actually getting something without even an antenna hooked up, and I'm getting it in full stereo. So I was messing with this transistor, I unbolted it, and I noticed it was a D330, very similar to a D313D. Both are used for power regulation and also for amplifier circuits. Watch if I mess with this. See how it just goes completely dead? If I just put my finger on this transistor, and if I move it, it comes and goes. So it's a cold solder joint, is all this was. And if I'm correct, we should be getting something out of the amp, because when you turn this on, the amp still came on. The speaker protection relay closes, so there's no DC or anything on the outputs. So this was a quick and easy repair. This little transistor here, I don't know how close I can get, but on the back side of that board, we're probably going to see some bad solder traces. I was testing it, it had 21 volts on the input and about 25 volts elsewhere. Of course, it's behind these filter caps. The first thing I did was to measure across these, and I was getting plus and minus 35, which is what I'm supposed to get. But behind there, I'll remove these caps, I'll resolder those traces and see if that restores this. If this is a bad transistor, that's an easy fix. But as you can see, let's see if AM works. I don't have anything hooked up, but we can see if we get anything. Yes, we have a station there, that's 58 WCHS. All the dial lamps are bad in this thing. Not entirely sure how that happened, only one works. And it's from 1977, and it's got plenty of hours on it. I don't think this one ever saw any hours. Everything on it works perfectly. No antenna hooked up yet. But that's perfectly fine. But I was just messing with it, and I took that cover off. Turned it on, and noticed those lights were on. So that's a very poor connection. You can see when I touch this transistor, and it does get warm. So now it's just to fix that solder connection. Go through the caps in the amplifier and power supply section as a first rule of recapping. Rebias the amplifier and check the DC offset. Clean all the controls a couple times. Test it thoroughly. Enjoy it like it's mine for a while, then return it back. Just probing around a little bit, I found that these 3 pins have a DC voltage on them that feeds the tuner. And the tuner is dead again. Of course, I move that transistor, it just pops right back to life. But I'll measure across that. So I'm going to measure, I'm going to put the meter where you can kind of see it. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this, but I'm going to measure these 3 pins. Right here. I'm going to measure them. So I'm measuring the bottom one, which has the brown wire in the center, 13.9, and then the top one, brown to yellow, 13.98. And that's with the transistor working. Now watch me move it. I've lost my regulation. I'm going to check on those same pins again and see what we have. We have nothing. Nothing at all. We're just picking up a ghost voltage there. There's the transistor we were looking at earlier. Don't know if you can tell, but if you look really closely, this one's okay, but this one and this one are cracked. I'm going to look over the rest of the board, see if there's any other cracks. Before wrapping up this project, I know many of you are thinking, why don't you recap it? Well, the owner of this receiver is not wanting to spend a whole lot of money on this unit, and I spot checked a few capacitors on this main board at least, and they all tested within 20%. So they're still good for the most part. Both channels sound good, they're even, there's good treble response, great bass response. So I don't believe any of these caps are quite near the point in which they need replaced, but everything on this is rock solid. DC output, or DC offset on the outputs, is right at 0 on both channels, 0 millivolts. And that's done by adjusting these two pots up here for each channel. Each one is dedicated for DC offset and bias. Although I may have those two pots reversed, but I did adjust to those 4 pots accordingly. And measuring the bias is measured between the end of this resistor here and this one here, so between these two. Same for that one. Before and after I did that procedure, I adjusted the 35 volts DC, which is adjusted on that resistor, variable resistor R787, measuring between J722 and ground, or J728. The last thing I have to do is replace the dial bulbs. As you can see, only one works. See the lights working? And if we look really closely, I don't know if you can see that, but I'm tuning into a station there. This is the centering position. This is the signal strength meter. I'll do a full demo of this unit on all functions except for phono, because that's a little hassle to dig out the Pioneer turntable out of the back of that one and plug it into this one down here. But just wanted to show you that everything is working. The only thing I really had to do was touch up about a handful of solder joints on the larger resistors on this board and resolder the 3 pins on this voltage regulator transistor. I'm going to go through and clean all the controls several times, work everything, give it a good workout, crank it up, and enjoy the tunes and piss off the neighbors. Of course, after I replace those lamps. Hey guys, it's been a few days since I last filmed on this Marantz receiver that I've been working on, and I wanted to give a quick final update on this unit and a demonstration after I do this. I went ahead and adjusted. I sprayed and cleaned all these pots and adjusted the DC offset for each channel and the bias current for each channel as well, and verified that several times. I adjusted the DC power supply, and then I went back and forth between the two several times where I got a good even point. Part I'm doing now is I'm replacing bulbs. As you can see, I've removed all of them, and these are all broken. I'm going to have to do something about this to fix it, but I've removed some of them to kind of find the type I was looking for. Here's one of the originals, and if you look closely, this is absolutely burnt. It's like the filament has vaporized itself on the inside inner diameter of that bulb. It's the glass itself, and still works, just not nearly as much as it could. So I want to go ahead and replace these bulbs. And the kit I ordered Actually come with these as well, but I'm going to also go ahead and replace those as well if it's necessary. None of them really seem to be burned out, and that board's hard to get to, so I might just hold on to those just in case I need them. But these big ones undergo the most amount of use, most amount of stress. Here's the other board here. All these tabs are broken on this, and this is not my doing, this just happens. A couple of them I broke under my pulling and tugging on it to get it to undo, but these, once you bend these latches, they're done. So I'm going to go ahead and replace those bulbs real quick. All of the new bulbs have been installed. As you can see, it looks great. It looks the way it's supposed to. This camcorder makes it look a lot more blue than it really is. It's more of a teal color, but this makes it a dark blue. But all the meters look really nice. We can compare these new bulbs to a set of original bulbs, which look, well, on the camera it looks no different, but there is a slight difference. Everything on here, well, it looks the same. It's good. It's what I was aiming for. But yeah, all the new bulbs are working. Every single one of them. It's a good thing. Here's one of the original bulbs. Wasn't good. That was the only good one. There was only one working. It was the one in the bottom 2 meters down here. This looks great. I also noticed that these heat sinks here, these 2 transistors per stack, they would look like pre-drivers. The Gorilla Snot type glue that was holding that on there was broken, and one of these was laying around on the inside of the amp, and I replaced that. I didn't glue it back. I actually bent these to where they're tighter and installed some heatsink grease. Kind of acts like a heatsink and holds the transistors together, and also helps for better thermal tracking for the little thermal sensing bulb that is in between those 2 transistors. I also cleaned all the switches meticulously, and I'm about to detail the cabinet and the front of the unit. Tearing up my bed in the process. Simple, basic design. I actually prefer this. I believe that's an F connector for FM. I use coax for everything, and it's just great. It even has the plastic over the dial, or over the label here on the back. It's good. Yeah, that's it.
Man, you ain't going nowhere, are you?
Power in just about any part. And that'll catch the outside corner. Streets on demonstrate.
We need to do something. She still is not interested in becoming a Catholic, but I do see the rejection of once saved, always saved, and sola fide as a huge step in that direction.
She's lost a couple screws. Yeah, I know why she... She was wondering if you were every moment, and I know that you're every...
Now, when I first tried it, none of these indicator lamps on the top here, the phono, FM, and AM, nothing would work. And I was looking all over, I was testing the main filter caps to make sure we had all our voltage. I had not hooked this up to speakers yet, not once yet. He said the amplifier works, but the tuner's dead. So I'm jumbling all over the place here, but what I basically found, I apologize for the John Mayer photo bomb here, but just noticed something very dead. No action from the meters. But now you can see if I put it on FM, I'm actually getting something without even an antenna hooked up, and I'm getting it in full stereo. So I was messing with this transistor, I unbolted it, and I noticed it was a D330, very similar to a D313D. Both are used for power regulation and also for amplifier circuits. Strange on a Marantz amplifier that I've been looking at for troubleshooting. As some of you all may or may not know, the Marantz bug has bit me, and I'm not only using one as my daily driver, this is a 2330B, I'm also servicing them. But I wanted to take on a few Marantz receivers. There's 4 transistors on this heatsink, and also notice this is the power and amplifier board. So I was looking, and I saw this lonely little transistor sitting up here. I noticed this sounds like a power supply problem, because these lights wouldn't work, and there was no action from the AM or FM tuner. Even if you press any of these buttons, nothing would come. I cleaned all the controls. It was